What is fear? Most people fear uncertainty, a loss of control, or when something threatens one's existentialism and sense of self. This can mean having to go up to a person in a public space and asking them questions that require you and the person in question to be somewhat vulnerable and not knowing how they would respond to those questions. The person might raise an eyebrow at you while they're sitting on an empty park bench on a beautiful morning, trying their best to be alone and avoid your gaze. At the sight of you approaching, they became increasingly agitated and end up berating you when you ask them questions, which makes them feel incredibly ashamed in such a public space. With so many others around, they fear being perceived as an acquaintance of yours, and they let out a huge rant to signal to everyone around them that they are in no way, shape, or form associated with you. With that, you retreated, vowing never to open yourself up this way again, lest you get traumatized in subsequent interactions. However, another possible scenario also is that they could also end up oversharing and telling you their deepest, darkest secrets, thoughts that probably should be kept as secrets. And you find it incredibly hard to end an unwanted connection with such a person, even after establishing boundaries and even after physically removing yourself from their presence and announcing that you want to end the connection with them. Somehow this person keeps on intruding into your personal life and wanting to be a part of everything that you are, essentially causing you to feel a loss of even your own identity when they took up yours. You think to yourself, well, will I be stuck with this person forever? And who even am I anymore? Or perhaps the person may end up completely disregarding your attempts at a connection, not even registering you as another separate entity with thoughts and emotions. It was as if you were just an intoxicated, incoherent drunk, who, as oblivious as they are to each other's reality, they somehow see straight through you as if they are the main character in a video game and you are just a blip in the matrix. You are a bunch of zeros and ones that mean nothing to them, only existing to be an obstacle in the conquest of their own life. You walked away again feeling disposable, unvalued and heartbroken. You think to yourself, why bother? Why even open up myself this way? Socializing will always carry an inherent risk. If you were to attempt to connect with another human being by opening a channel of communication, you always carry the risk of being ridiculed or ostracized from society. Apparently, there's a right and a wrong way of communicating with another soul, a way that ensures social cohesion within your community, and a way that is apparently somehow antisocial and even destructive to our society. People are told they are being too forward, too withdrawn, too fake, too ambiguous, too much, or too little when they do not understand the social conventions of a particular venue or social context. This is why anticipating a social interaction in this way can be incredibly scary, due to the risks, possible loss of control, and uncertainties involved. A client whom I had looked after in the past has told me that the most rewarding part of his occupation was that he had the privilege to connect with people in a unique way that many don't get to experience. Let's call him Paul. Paul was a professional photographer before he retired and enjoyed taking photos of people, as well as the beautiful scenery of our little idyllic island. Paul battled with cancer and various other comorbidities, and yet somehow still maintained a positive outlook on life, despite being in and out of hospital way too many times throughout the progression of his illness. I asked Paul one time to tell me about his most proud work, and this opened a can of worms which I honestly was not expecting. I don't have a single favorite photo that I have taken. However, I can tell you this. The most rewarding part of my job was to connect with people, Paul told me. We talked about how he was a people person, and Paul ended up asking me questions about myself. What was my reasoning for why I went into my profession, which requires me to be surrounded by people all the time? And what do I see myself doing in the future? I told Paul, I honestly don't know. But I know I want to be with people, and if possible, to help them in some way, despite being a massive introvert and enjoying the company of my own self, much to the distaste of my friends and family. Paul told me the most rewarding thing is when he can connect with a person when they have let go of a facade that they have put up to those around them. He told me that a good photo is when he can see the person's eyes, something that is so subtle in those eyes that you can only detect when you are attuned to people. When he can see a sign of them finally letting go of this shield that they have put up to prevent others from seeing their true self. That's what a good photo means to Paul. Before that, he asked me what I think makes a good photo. Before he shared that with me, I told him I thought the subject must be candid and not think too much when the photo is taken. And it helps too if they are attractive, in which I am not. We both laughed. Paul assured me that I was not the worst. To this, I feel better about myself, but not in a superior way, but a genuine, warm feeling of happiness and acceptance of my unique looks. Paul then told me that in order for him to get his subject to relax and be their true self, it was necessary for him to connect with them first. So often he would look into their eyes and talk to them. But in some African cultures, however, too much direct eye contact is not seen as something that is socially appropriate. So Paul had more trouble taking photos of these people. However, sometimes the risk was completely worth it. Paul proudly said that many of his clients loved his photos, and he in return loved those photos he took of them. Because in his view, a good photo is when the subject is their true self. I don't think anything is certain in life other than death. We will all die, to put it simply. No matter how well you look after your health, how aggressive a cancer treatment that you might have chosen maybe, or how good you are at prolonging the inevitable, your time will come eventually. Perhaps an acceptance of death and being informed of these processes can help us all to have a more fulfilling and meaningful life. Like many other fears that I have, death is probably something that I have always sought to be more informed of, and most importantly, to be more accepting of. But as a child, it was really hard. I thought everyone could live forever, but this was not the case. My paternal grandfather's death shocked me to my core and perhaps was one of the many causes of my existential crisis and subsequent suicide attempts. Thank God I am in a much better place now, and this is all thanks to having to constantly encounter the sick and the dying, a feature that is uniquely privileged with my profession. Witnessing this inherent natural process of our existence, I have become more accepting of it. But it doesn't get really easier. I feel it has better prepared me, and I no longer fear it. Now, as for talking to that girl, I don't know, man. I don't even know her. And that's why it's so scary. Surely, being on this earth for this long, I would have figured out by now how to connect with another human being. But to be honest, I don't think anyone can ever figure this out. It really is a gift when you get to connect with another person. And it is completely voluntary. They either choose to open themselves up to you or they don't. And that's the beauty of it, I think. Like Paul, I wish I could detect this change in someone's demeanor when they can completely be themselves. Perhaps like my fear of death, I just need to be more accepting of the fact that I have no control over how another person might react to me. Whatever I do, it doesn't really matter in the end. So just say whatever, Khoi. Well, within reasons, of course. And perhaps what makes a good connection is when both people are unscripted and just being their true, unguarded self. And in some cases, in my case, even slightly unattractive self in the conventional sense. But that's just Paul's in my opinion, anyways. He's only a photographer after all. He makes people look good and feel good about themselves. That's his job. Anyways, thank you for listening to me. I hope your day is going amazingly well. Stay strong, God bless, and I'll speak to you soon.